Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Spurlock. The topic that I chose to write on and discuss today are the issues with athletic programs and how they can improve. All throughout my life, I've played sports. I played baseball, basketball, tennis, golf. I've played sports my whole life. Once I graduated high school and chose not to play sports in college, I got into coaching right off the bat, and I loved it. I've seen different aspects. I've seen the aspects of coaching just from a coach's perspective. I've seen it from a parent's perspective. I've seen it from a player's perspective, and I've seen it from an administrative perspective with some experiences that I've had. And I've wanted to touch up on the issues that I've seen in the program that I'm currently in and the program that I've been in the past, and just from an outside perspective that I've seen in general. What you can expect today during this presentation is we'll address many of the issues that athletic programs face with coaches, with parents, etc. The solutions that will help reduce these issues. And then we'll put a plan to implement these solutions at Wardlaw Academy where I'm at now, and maybe some costs that are involved with these solutions that we're going to put in place. The first slide, it says, what issues do youth in high school sports face? So there's a significant decline in participation, not just in my program and the programs that I've seen, but in overall youth sports across the United States. Some people say that it's because of the lack of trained coaches, and you see that all over. Coaches now are getting in the mindset of, well, I played sports in high school, so that's good enough. I'm going to stick with the knowledge that I know, the same methods that taught me, I'm going to teach. And in some cases, that's all well and good. However, there's a fine art in fine-tuning your knowledge and gaining knowledge and going to the next level with your knowledge. You know, one of the other issues that we see are the hiring processes of coaches. Nowadays, a lot of coaches are hired based off of who they know, and instead of their resume, their reputations, their relationships. That plays a huge factor in them getting hired from a school, from Wardlaw, from any other school I've been a part of. That's part of it. However, the qualifications may not be met, and we're going to address that as well. In this slide, you see the decline in participation in team sports and individual sports. The blue line is individual sports. Team sports is a red line. This slide can sort of speak for itself here. From a study conducted by the Washington Post from 2011 through 2016, there is a substantial decline in participation. And this could be for many reasons. It could be the rise in technology in the hands of our youth. I mean, anywhere you look, you see a child on an iPhone, an iPad, a Game Boy, anything else. They're playing on their phones or their electronics constantly. And that could be part of it. It could be the product that, parents see on TV, not wanting their kids to be a part of that. And that's understandable. Or could it be the lack of knowledge and understanding that these children are being taught? In my opinion, that's a lot of it. A lot of coaches are just okay with the status quo. They're okay with just getting by coaching, especially at the youth sports level. And to me, this is being a disservice to these children and a disservice to the next generation moving forward. This next slide is the big four in youth sports. They're all taking losses. You see from 2008 through 2016, there is a decline in participation, not only in baseball and basketball and soccer and in football. Again, there can be many reasons for this. However, when you're looking at it, especially when it comes to football, the concussion protocol that most youth sports have is not there. The training that these youth sports coaches have is not there. However, there are some keys and some solutions that we can implement that can change this and that can drastically improve the programs moving forward. Here in this next slide, you see a lack of training. Many parents have concerns about the coaches that are not being trained. And that's a very big concern, and rightfully so. And many of you can probably, attest to this. A lot of coaches refer back to the way that they were taught in high school. And they aren't furthering their education. They're not furthering their knowledge. They're just getting by. Not having the appropriate training can lead to lawsuits if not protected. We'll get into this a little bit later in this process, but there are ways to prevent this. There are ways to get protected. There's insurances that you can get, and we will get into that in just a little bit. However, all coaches should be trained in CPR, first aid, and AED. This should not be even a negotiable thing. CPR, first aid, and AED can save lives, and that's the most important thing in youth sports. Is if a situation were to arise where a student was for some reason had a heart attack or had some kind of heart palpitation or anything like that, a coach should know how to handle it, whether that's to give CPR, whether that's to use the AED machine, anything like that, a coach should be trained for. However, most organizations don't require any type of training at all. In this next slide, this is a little bit of a scary slide here. Coaches don't have sufficient training. And again, this is from the same study that the Washington Post did. All this will be cited and the information is given. But these percentages are alarming. Less than 1/3 of all coaches polled were trained in general safety and injury prevention. This is a pretty scary stat. Less than 1/3 of the coaches that are coaching your kids, my kids, your siblings, my siblings, they're not being trained on how to handle any type of injury. And that's a scary thing. The motivational techniques, you can see sports skills and tactics, CPR, first aid, concussion management, physical conditioning are all part of the sport. And these coaches aren't being trained on it. And that's a pretty big problem if you ask me. I want a coach coaching me or my children or my siblings to know each and every aspect of the game. That comes with the prevention of injury. That comes with how to motivate my child. That comes with how to further my child's skill. A lot of these coaches aren't being trained on that. And we'll move on to the hiring processes that a lot of these organizations have, including Wardlaw. So for Wardlaw and many other schools and programs, the hiring process can be a task, right? A lot of coaches are pretty much hired because of who they know, because of the relationships that they have. However, the resume should be speaking for itself. Training should be looked at. The knowledge should be assessed, not just who they know, not just what they can do for the school, but how to improve the overall program. And that's a very big concern for me and a lot of the parents that I've spoken to. In the years past, it seems to be a hiring and handling of coaches that is not adequate to the overall benefit of the program. It was obvious that some coaches tend to favor certain children that may be tied to a stakeholder, whether it's a stakeholder's child, it's a stakeholder's niece or nephew, or they're just close to a stakeholder. A lot of coaches tend to lean and tend to give bias toward that student. That's all part of the coach's training that will be addressed here in just a few minutes. So here are some of the solutions that I gave. Coaches trained by the National Alliance of Youth Sports. This training program is very simple. I've done it myself. You pay a $20 fee for yourself, and you pay $5 additional to any other program that you want to be certified for. So say I coach two sports. I coach baseball and football, right? I will have my $20 certification in football. But if I want to get certified in baseball, I'll just pay an additional $5 to take that program. In this program, it'll teach you how to deal with parents. It'll teach you how to deal with the officials. It'll teach you how to deal with players. Also, they offer a concussion protocol type course. And this will help greatly with how to spot a concussion, and that's a growing problem in our industry now, is just the alarming cases of CTE based on concussions. And that's a very scary situation when it starts to mess with the brain. These programs help coaches deal and handle with these type situations. On top of the National Alliance of Youth Sports Training, a semester training session for all coaches that is mandated by the athletic director. The athletic director will administrate this training session. They will go over the handbook. They will go over how to handle parents, the 24-hour rule, which I like a lot, which means you cannot speak to a coach or a player about anything that happened in a game until after 24 hours after the situation happened. That way, you can have calmer, cooler heads, which can help with, kind of defusing a hostile situation. In this training session, it will also go over CPR, first aid, and AED training. This training can be done through a lot of public safety offices for free of charge or a little fee. The next solution that I would put in is a hiring criteria in place and putting a hiring committee in place for all coaches. This will just help with the overall accountability for the program, for the coaches, for the committee, especially if it's put out in writing and put online where the general public can see it. The accountability will be crucial. The next slide is the implementation. And this, how I would do it, I would put a preliminary poll or test out there in the start of the fall of 2018, followed by a follow-up poll at the end of the year to gauge the success of the changes. This poll will just have questions that are based on the effectiveness of our program, of the coaches, how the players seem to adapt to other players, how the coaches handle situations, and other questions quite like that. At the beginning of the semester, before the season begins, each coach will attend the training sessions hosted by the athletic director and complete the National Alliance of Youth Sports Training. Again, this helps so much, and with that small fee of the National Alliance of Youth Sports Training, you will get up to $1 million of liability insurance. And this may not seem like a big deal because you may never need it, but when you do, it will help greatly. And each coach that is hired will have to meet all the criteria listed in the job description made up by the administration, no exceptions. Doesn't matter who you know, it doesn't matter the relationships you have with stakeholders or the board or anyone else. Your resume has to meet the criteria that is given and that is written well beforehand. I believe all these issues can be fixed just by the implementation of these solutions. I truly think that youth sports is a vital part of our society today, but with these changes, it can grow and it can improve into something we can all be proud of and cherish. Thank you.